Hi guys, uh, this is Harshit Bhardwaj, and I am live.
Introduce yourself in one line.
And right, so the idea of this, can you hear me? Is my voice okay? Okay, Sushmita, hi. Somebody joined finally. Huh? Okay, so the idea of this live is we are starting. Bhanu is here, Sushmita is here, and you can chat, you can write your questions in the chat. So, first of all, before we start, I would like to uh, pray for three aspirants that unfortunately passed away recently in Delhi. And it's very unfortunate, and I haven't been, uh, I don't know, able to logically understand what really happened. So let's pray for their souls. Now, the thing is, I start this batch every year, and there are students who join, leave it, join, come back. Maybe the lack of structure is the responsibility lies upon me, but the fact of the matter is that I am not a full-time teacher. Most of you know that, right? And I do not go out and impose myself that I will teach you, right? I find it's a privilege that I have. There are aspirants and students who want to learn from me. Sushmita, I will talk about this question. This is a very valid question. So, the reason I'm not able to instill a structure on this is that I don't do it professionally, and I don't have a team to manage this. Right? It is hard enough for me to chase your answer sheets. So when I've tried it many times that there is a structure and there is a schedule that you will be sending your answers every Saturday or Sunday, and I'll be sending them back in 3 days' time. Nobody follows that. So I'm forever chasing who sent what and when. So what happens is students stretch this 3 month course or affair into 6 months and 8 months, and they're still writing answers. They're still sending it to me. And then after a year, after I don't know, a long time, they come back and they say, "Okay, we want refund and all that." So I don't want to get into all that. So this time around, and that is one of the reasons I posted so many lectures, so many videos on every text already on the internet. YouTube पे सब है, and I'll add more. So that is why I'll be doing this YouTube live for this batch, so that all the content, all the information is there for everyone. You don't really need me for an actual live lecture. Yes, live one-to-one discussion like this is required, and I'm happy to do that routinely, hopefully every week or whenever I can, maybe more than that if needed, as long as I get the answers from your end uh, regularly. So if I have enough content, I can get back to you, right? If there is only one student sending me five answers, uh, it's like not possible. So here is how it's going to be. Uh, Most of you who are joining this course, you have read the texts, yes. And if you have not read the entire syllabus, that is fine. My all the 14 tests that I have created, they are already out there. I have given it to students to distribute for free. There is nothing secretive about them. I'll share it in the WhatsApp group again. You can pick whatever test you want to do. Ideally, we should be doing the same text, right? Because what that helps is that when I discuss, so if you all are doing the same text, you make it makes sense to all of you. If someone's doing Passage to India, someone's doing House for Mr. Biswas, someone's doing, and you haven't read House for Mr. Biswas, and I'm discussing answers of House for Mr. Biswas, so it wouldn't make sense. But I have found that I cannot enforce that discipline. I ask you to follow test one, test two, test three, doesn't happen, right? So whatever you've read, there is a reason this group is there. So use this group and discuss within yourselves and do pick a test. That's the only advice I'll give you, and this is very crucial, right? Discuss within yourselves, pick a test. Let's say test one, that is Passage to India, and I think Poetry of Auden and Foster, paper two. If you haven't read, read them. Do that, all of you. Maybe form another group, right? Form another group, discuss a discussion group, ask questions, brainstorm. All of you do that. Then write your answers. Then send those answers to me. Hopefully at the same time, Saturday, Sunday, or pick a day. And then when I come to evaluate, after evaluating, come and discuss with you, it'll make sense. It'll be a cumulative exercise. Does it make sense? This is the only structure I want you to follow, right? Does it make sense? Can you do that? So that way you don't, anyone can join the test. So all you have to do is read that text that the group is doing. So you don't need to read the entire syllabus to join this batch, right? Good evening, Nidhi. So Nidhi, what we have discussed is that you guys put together a group. The link of that WhatsApp group that I created is in the description. I'll share it again, and I'll share it in the chat. In fact, if any somebody from you should post it in the chat for everyone else to follow. I'll share it in the description anyway. So join that group and then form another discussion group where you decide, all of you decide a test, not a text. Decide we will do test one. There are 14 tests that I have put together. Out of those 14 tests, maybe start from test one. That is the most common sense approach. So everyone decide that we will be doing test one. Everyone read that text, attempt the paper, decide on a date that we'll submit. So make it a self-study group, right? Somebody take charge. Somebody, maybe I can assign uh, one person, the leader for a week. So every week I'll change the group's monitor, right? So that monitor's task would be to pick the test. So that is a privilege you get. So you pick which test we are going to do next week. So everyone will read, and 1 week is more than enough to read and write the answers. Okay. If you're taking more than a week, any text, I don't care, Paradise Lost, House for Mr. Biswas, any biggest, fattest text, you can read and write answers in a week. So the monitor's job will be to decide which test are you doing, and the monitor's task will be to collect all the answers by a deadline. So let's take 7 days. So by the seventh day, you should have all the tests submitted to you. Hmm? And you set a deadline, 7 p.m. on the seventh day or whatever. And after that, that's it. And then whatever is submitted to you, you email me as a bundle. Does that make sense? So I'll assign monitors for coming 7 or 8 weeks, right? So you can pick. Does that make sense? Will it work? I'm just trying to give it a self-imposed structure. Yeah, cool. So I think we have 7, 8 people in the group, and because otherwise, like some of you are, there is no pressure, there is no motivation to write, to be on time, to hit the deadline, and I cannot do it. You have to understand it, right? I simply cannot chase you all. Right? So this structure makes sense. So I will only correct answers submitted by the monitor, and hopefully the monitor does the job well, obviously. So, ठीक, that is one thing. Now coming back to the question, Sushmita, who is I think is in West Bengal and preparing. Uh, so, is it necessary to come to Delhi to prepare? Now, I have not taught at Mukherjee Nagar or Old Rajendra Nagar, but there was a time, very brief, 10, 15 days of time in my life, like I think just before COVID or uh, just before COVID, where I thought about finding a coaching center to teach. So I went to Mukherjee Nagar and I went there like for many days from Ghaziabad there, and I knew nobody. And fortunately or unfortunately, I went into all the major coaching centers. I introduced myself and I told them I already had a YouTube channel. I was already teaching. They were students, and I told them I teach English, and nobody took me seriously. Right? They were like, "अरे सर इंग्लिश के स्टूडेंट्स नहीं होते हैं और ठीक है आप अपना नंबर छोड़ जाइए," kind of. So I spent a few days there. I drank tea with the students. I talked to students, and I went round. Pamphlets भी चिपकवाए English literature के batches के, and nothing happened. Thankfully, or I don't know. So I saw stuff there, and even I was shocked and surprised. I think there is a community there. Definitely, there are students there, and there is a sense of a community. But I don't know why students choose to live there in the middle of everything. I think Nidhi, you also live in Rajendra Nagar, and Nidhi here in the group is from Ranchi. Bhanu's suggestion is also right. If we start from paper one and the monitor still works, the monitor's job will be to chase everyone to write by the deadline and collect all the PDFs and facilitate discussion in the group, right? So rather than everyone messaging me and trying to ask me doubts and questions, if the monitor throughout the week can collect and collate questions and send me, that'll be like better, right? Everything, poetry, plays. So what happens is, if you've seen any of my answer evaluation videos, whenever I'm evaluating, I spend a lot of time in explaining the texts and the doubts. So the first thing is, this is how I've always taught. I always ask students to first read without any external help. There are lessons that I have done on most of the syllabus. Read, whatever you understand, and then write whatever you understand. Then I'll figure out ki where you are and how much understanding you need. If you need a lot of understanding, I'll suggest you to read ABC. If your understanding of the text is fine but you're not able to write it, then I'll just simply ask you to keep writing. And you will be surprised that 90%, 95% of the times your understanding of the text is fine, more than enough. I can guarantee you, most of you, whatever text you've done, your understanding, you can discuss that text with me verbally very well, but when it comes to writing, we fail. So what I'm actually teaching you is I'm teaching you the art of writing, not literature. I'm teaching you the art of communication. That's the actual essence. And that is what UPSC is testing anyway. They're not testing your knowledge of literature. That won't be needed. They're testing how do you express something that is complicated simply. So you write, and then when we do these answer evaluation calls, we'll touch upon the doubts and queries, right? So coming back to what is the best way to prepare? Do you need to come to Delhi? Do you need? I think there is definitely an ecosystem there, but the point is, why do you need to live in Rajendra Nagar? Why do you need to live in Mukherjee Nagar? तो अभी हम वो बात नहीं करते कि do you need coaching? Do you need a structured coaching? Uh, that depends upon you. But why there? Delhi में अगर आप if you live in Lakshmi Nagar, right? For 10,000 rupees, you can get a much better accommodation and food. Anywhere else, कहीं भी metro से आप आधा घंटे दूर का कोई भी ले लो. Why do you need to be in the midst of there? Because I'm sure that there's so many students there. There must be a lot of negativity. There must be. It's not all positive, like shown in the films. And those who are living there, those who experienced it, they can tell. So you don't need to be in the midst of it, right? Coaching center join करने हैं, go do your classes, come back. Peer group बनाने, find a way. That is my take on it. And wherever you are, like Delhi, UP में Lucknow has very good coaching centers. Bihar and Patna has very good coaching centers. Bengal, you don't really need to come to, all the way to Delhi, and so much is available online. That is my take on it. Right? Okay. So that is how we are going to run it. Now, those who are new to this and those who will be watching this, as you already know, the fees that we have put together, the fees normally is 18,000, but for from now on, I've decided to keep it pay as you can basis, which is based on honesty. If you really struggle to pay it, then you pay whatever you can. Absolutely fine, no problem at all. If you can pay, honestly, please do pay, right? Because those who pay are indirectly helping those who cannot, right? I'm talking like a socialist system, but that's how it is. And so yes, that's what it is. So please, as I said, spread it around to those who are sitting on the fences. Most of the emails that I get, I don't know why people think English literature should be available for free. Most more than 90% of the emails inquiries that I get from students, as soon as they hear the fees, they do not respond back. So because of that, I've decided that in any way, this is not a professional stream of income for me. So I think let's give it back. Whatever uh, the 2 years that I taught at an academy, uh, they were very difficult years in my personal life, and I am forever thankful to them during the COVID years and even after that. So even though that's a lot of people not happy with them, they might have a different business model, but I feel that this teaching, being a teacher, has given me so much of non-monetary pleasure. Plus, this is a way for me to keep connected to literature, which if I don't do this, uh, it's gone. So I'm getting as much as I'm giving. But when the fees option is not there, students don't take it sincerely. That is why there is commerce is a beautiful thing. Money is not an ugly thing. It makes agreements formal. So when you pay me a fees, even if you pay me 1,000 rupees, I am accountable for it, right? So you can ask me, "Ki, sir, why haven't you checked my answer sheets?" Right? So that is why whatever you can pay, smallest amount, what you can afford, do give it, right? I'm not talking about the concept of Guru Dakshina, right? And pay me 1 rupee. That symbolism is bullshit. It's just honestly whatever you can, because that makes it formal for you and me, and it stays between you and me. So send it out to as many people as you can. Get them to join the batches. Obviously, only those who sincerely adhere to the structure of submitting on time will be allowed to carry on, regardless of whether you paid the fees or not. And there will be no refunds. So if you don't submit, if you don't show up, uh, obviously you'll be given some warnings, but then you will be out. Now I'm open to questions. What do you have in mind? Hmm. Is there a lag in receiving the signal? Guys, let me check. There is no task, Nidhi, per se, like Bhanu's suggestion is fine. There are 14 tests. That I will share the tests after the call. And no, Sachit, thank you for coming. Uh, PYQs, you can do whatever you want to do, but like the tests, you have seen the tests, you have the tests. Maybe you can share the tests PDFs in the group, all the 14 tests. And so you start from test one. Test one has EM Foster and WH Auden, right? So do whatever answers you want to do of them, PYQs or the tests. I suggest you do the test questions, because test questions are of all sorts, 10, 15, 20. They also test some mythical references, some secondary topics. So pick the tests and pick those authors. So you're free to do PYQs of EM Foster and Norden. And we are going to restrict it to 7 days per test. Okay. So by the seventh day, you should be submitting your PDF to your weekly monitor, right? Weekly, or you can decide, I don't know, I'll decide monthly monitors. So monitor's job will simply be to chase, remind everyone that you have to submit and meet the deadline. After the deadline, submissions will not be evaluated unless there is a genuine emergency, which I'm sure will pops up normally. So that is monitor's job. 7 days, one test. All the queries, doubts during that 7 day period will be collected by the monitor, group monitor, and sent to me as and when. Okay, so that is Sachit's question. So 7 days, one test. So that makes it 14 weeks. So let's add a couple of more weeks to 16 weeks. That is the timeline we're looking at. Hopefully. Obviously, there'll be delays from my end. Sometimes there'll be delays from your end. And so I'll normally take 7 days. So you submit in 7 days the first time. I'll take the next 7 days to evaluate them, and the following week I'll be discussing those previous weeks. So we'll be in like 1 week's lag. Okay, Mansi, your question has been answered. That rough idea of the timeline is 14 to 18, 16 weeks. Hmm? Uh, can we start with the novels, Sushmita? We are starting with test one. Test one has a Passage to India, E.M. Foster, and W.H. Auden's poem. So you have a novel and you have a poem, 9 poems. I don't know Auden's poems. So you start with that. Everyone's starting with that. It helps if everyone's doing the same test, because when we discuss it, it'll make sense because there'll be same questions. Plus, when you all will be doing the same texts, you can discuss. Does it make sense? There is a cumulative discussion that will help you. Okay, Nancy. Translation for Paradise Lost. Why do you need translation? It is written in English, modern English. Um, okay. Poetry of paper one and poetry of paper two. I have addressed this many times. You will not be asked or expected to understand poetry of paper one line by line. Right? Poetry paper one questions mostly will be thematic, broad questions. Right? Poetry paper two questions can be stylistic, can be around the critical technicalities of that specific poem. Right? So paper two poems we have to read closely, closer line by line reading, because there is a question, 50 marker, that is all about this. And then the rest of the poetry questions that you'll get in paper two, they expect you to understand the poem well. So paper two poems you have to understand well, line by line. Paper one poems you have to read, not, I won't say quickly, but you're not expected to read them line by line, like Rape of the Lock, 5 cantos. Just you should have a broader understanding of it. Paradise Lost, I think book 1 to 4, I don't know, 4 books we have in our syllabus, 1 2 4 and 10, right? So but I ask everyone to read the entire Paradise Lost. So you read the entire Paradise Lost, read it like a novel, read it like a prose, and don't get too much stuck about the peculiarities, remembering things, remembering facts. No, don't be underlining everything, highlighting everything. Just read it, understand the gist. And I always say, whenever you're reading something complicated or anything, first read the PYQs or questions from my test paper. So you're doing Paradise Lost, read the questions, read them many times, so that you understand what actual concepts are we looking for in the poem. Otherwise, that poem is like a vast canvas. You don't know what you're looking for. It's like a big forest, and you don't know which tree you're looking for. So those PYQs give you specific conceptual ideas, conceptual roadmaps. Does it make sense? It applies to every text. That's why we read the PYQs first, and then we read that text. So now what happens is, and you'll be amazed, this is how it's going to happen, that your mind will be looking for those conceptual areas in the text. and it will disregard the rest, right? Cool. So, Paradise Lost, Rape of the Lock, uh, In Memoriam, just read them quickly. It's fine if you don't worry, don't remember what happened and what, but you should just remember the plot, the story, the characters, the thematic ideas. That's it. Anything else? Okay. Who else? So everyone's set. Uh, Mansi and anyone else who's not part of the WhatsApp group. Somebody please share the group's link in the chat, and I will also share it in the description. Okay. How do we relate the scenes with themes in the question? Like theme of nature in King Lear. Sir, so can we start from Passage to India and discuss in the WhatsApp group? Yes. So first of all, Nidhi, for discussion, you guys form a separate group. Okay. And I will make a Nancy the monitor for the first 15 days. So today is first until the 15th of August. Nancy is the monitor for the next couple of tests. Uh, right? So it's your job to form the group and chase everyone, make everyone clear that we are doing test one, make test one available to everyone, and chase everyone during the week, set up a deadline, and then get everyone to submit the PDFs to you and then send them to me. Okay. Now, going back to your question of how do we relate, let's say, the theme of nature in King Lear. If you, that is why it is good when you read the original text. Can anyone tell me how King Lear starts, how it opens? What is the scene when it opens? Huh? Okay. Here is a link of the group that you can join. Right. So it opens up in the court where the king's asking who loves me the most. That scene's happening. Now, when in both in King Lear and Tempest, there is a dichotomy of nature versus nurture, right? Nature as in prakriti, and nurture again it is nurturing is a nurtured nature, our individual nurtured nature, or you can say nature versus human nature. There is that interplay happening in the Tempest. The opening scene is of the storm that's both a metaphor for the external and the internal, right? So when you look first when you read the questions, I really want you to think. Do not just try and find an answer कि अरे ये तो इंटरनेट पे मिल जाएगा, अभी देख लेते हैं. मिल जाएगा. आप जैसे गूगल में डालोगे हजारों एक्सप्लेनेशन आ जाएंगे. I can carry on talking about it for hours and hours and hours. But until the whole idea is to practice your critical analysis. तो आपके पास चीटिंग के बहुत सारे माध्यम हैं. But please look at this test series, look at this optional to refine, master and polish your critical analysis. कि आप जो क्वेश्चन आपने पूछा कि नेचर के थीम को मैं किंग लेयर से कैसे एसोसिएट करूं, think about it and don't rush for help. Think, it's not that difficult. So what happens is all these thematic questions, they're brilliant questions, because let's say there is big concept both in King Lear and Tempest, that is the disillusionment of power, right? That is a big Shakespearean concept. It's a big Renaissance concept, Elizabethan and Jacobean concept, disillusionment of power. Now you have only this statement, disillusionment of power. You have two texts. So what this exercise, this critical analysis exercise is doing, is helping you do, is to think about the entire text. In fact, both the texts, so many lines, hundreds of lines of text, recall all that, right? So your brain is like, it's working like chat gpt. ChatGPT works on thousands and thousands of documents. You're right now working on one or two documents, and you're bringing it, recalling all those things that you've read, and then you're trying to make sense. It's a huge exercise for your brain. This is what critical analysis is. And you must have heard about it in GS, in essays, everywhere. कि critical analysis देखते हैं आपके answers में. बहुत students पूछते हैं critical analysis होती क्या है? This is what critical analysis is. That you go beyond what is apparent and you critically think using your left and right both sides of the brain कि ऐसा disillusionment of power कैसे दिखाया शेक्सपियर ने टेम्पेस्ट में. एक one way of looking at is, मैं एग्जांपल देता हूं, I'm not trying to solve it for you, is कि प्रोस्पेरो की पावर उससे छीन ली गई and then he ended up on a remote island. But because he was power hungry, because he was power obsessed, उसने आइलैंड पे भी एक सत्ता बना ली, वहां पे भी colonize कर लिया, right? He became a kind of a king there. So much so that he imposed his power and authority on everything there, even on the nature, even on his own daughter. So he imposed his power and authority on everything. एक जगह से छीनी, दूसरी जगह उसने उसको impose कर दिया. But eventually, and he stayed there for 12 years, practiced his magic and all that. किस लिए? बदला ले सके, revenge, because उससे power छीनी गई थी, power वापस लेने के लिए. So he was in that illusion of power, that power is everything. वो illusion से disillusionment की journey कैसे हुई? That is what you have to think, right? Does it make sense? ठीक है. So this, everyone understands the structure. Nancy is the group monitor. Test 1 भानु ने share कर दिया schedule, and PDFs सबको भेजनी है, and do as many as you can. 50 नहीं करना, obviously I won't be able to evaluate 50 of your answers, but 5 कर सकते हो 5 करो, 10 कर सकते हो 10 करो, राइट? 2 कर सकते हो 2 करो, it's fine, do your best consistently. You should be able to read the text in 2 to 3 days. Most of you have already read the texts. दोबारा पढ़ने की आवश्यकता नहीं है, पोएट्री पढ़ सकते हो. And start writing answers. एक आंसर या 2 आंसर every day. Start writing. Get into the consistent loop of writing. 1 घंटा लगेगा सिर्फ, आवर अ डे. सो आधा घंटा सुबह, आधा घंटे शाम, 2 आंसर्स आप लिख सकते हो, 1 आंसर लिख सकते हो सकता है 1 आंसर लिखने में 1 घंटा लगेगा अभी इन द बिगनिंग. तो वो 1 घंटा से आपको 5 मिनट में जाना है. एग्जाम में 5 मिनट लगेंगे, 10 मार्कर लिखने के लिए आपको 5 मिनट मिलते हैं, राइट? तो अभी आपको आधा घंटा 40 मिनट लगेगा, तो उससे 5 मिनट तक आप कैसे लिख पाओगे? दैट इज द जर्नी. Sonal, yes, it is better that you become part of this group. You will get all the uh, peer cumulative peer approach, and you'll like the community. Now coming back to Nancy's question, this is the last question I'll take, and then we'll say goodbye. I have a meeting at 9:30. Uh, so Milton, Paradise Lost. There is a question about uh, the idea of obedience, and they have asked multiple times questions about how the contemporary monarchy reflected what John Milton was writing. His personal life, monarchy, his ideas about kings and monarchy and authority. Like there is that question that without unknowingly he supported Satan, right? Devil's party. He was of the devil's party without knowing. So any text that we are doing, every text that we are doing, we are taking an inside out approach and outside in approach. What is an inside out approach is we are not reading the text in isolation. Okay, so there is this book, let's say, आप if you think कि आपका काम लिटरेचर में सिर्फ ये है कि इस बुक को आप पढ़ लो and that's it. No, we are not reading the text in isolation. Any text is never isolated anyway. It is part of a continuum of historical, social, political, geopolitical things happening around it. So आपने Paradise Lost पढ़ के, this is inside out approach. You read the text, and from the text, what do you understand about the society that was prevalent at the time? That is inside out approach. That is the first point. You read Pride and Prejudice, and you are supposed to understand how the Victorian society behaved in terms of their position with women. Paradise Lost पढ़ के, Tess of the Burvilles पढ़ के, Mill on the Floss पढ़ के, ये Hard Times पढ़ के, reading these 4 Victorian texts, can you put together a picture of the Victorian society? Literature is a mirror to the society. This is inside out approach. This is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to really, you know. दूसरा approach है outside in. So while you will be doing any text, the only allowance I make for you to use internet is कि you can look up the social, political, economical, political mahal, atmosphere of the society when the text was written. तो आपको थोड़ा उस समय के सोसाइटी का पता होना चाहिए. So for modernist texts, if you do not understand कि फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर, सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर के बीच में क्या हो रहा था यूरोप में, you will never understand what modernism is, right? So Suyog's question has also come, and this is one of the approaches I am telling you. So there is an inside out approach and there is an outside in approach. You read the text, and you're from the text you are supposed to piece together what the society looked like. Literature is a mirror to its society. आपको वो समझना है कि उस तरह की सोसाइटी कैसी थी. And all the texts in our syllabus, they are representatives of their times. They are representative texts of their eras. Do you know what that means? Hard Times, Tess, Mill the Floss, Pride and Prejudice. They are representative texts of the Victorian era. और उसमें भी और निश है. ये चारों टेक्स्ट, हार्ड टाइम्स थोड़ा सा कुछ और बात करता है, लेकिन प्राइमरली ये चारों टेक्स्ट they are very focused on one idea. Can anyone tell me what aspect of that Victorian society? UPSC has asked this like every other year. शॉर्ट नोट्स में हर अगले साल स्किप होके ये क्वेश्चन आता है. These four Victorian novels, what aspect of the Victorian society there? Rigid society? No. Yes, of course, the rigid society, but position of women, how Victorian society treated its women. चारों novels देख लो आप. It is all these four novels are a study in that. आपको 4 नॉवल दिए हैं ये समझने के लिए कि विक्टोरियन सोसाइटी, position of the Victorian society, right? So you read the text. This is inside out approach. You read the text and you understand about the society. We have Victorian, we have romantic, we have modernist, right? We have neoclassical, we have Elizabethan and Jacobean. सबके टेक्स्ट हैं. दूसरी अप्रोच है आउटसाइड इन. आउटसाइड इन में आप कोई भी टेक्स्ट है लाइक पैराडाइज लॉस्ट यू टॉक्ड अबाउट, सो यू रीड अबाउट द सोसाइटी पहले थोड़ा सा, बिकॉज for me it is easier because I have lived and studied in England and I have studied and lived the history of England. I understand it, you guys don't understand it. तो एक बार उस टेक्स्ट, जब वो टेक्स्ट लिखी गई थी, उस टेक्स्ट का जो डेट लाइन है, उस सोसाइटी के बारे में यू नीड टू रियली अंडरस्टैंड. रिसर्च नहीं करनी, विकिपीडिया पेज एनफ होता है कि हो क्या रहा था, सोशियो पॉलिटिकल क्या था, किंग कौन था, क्या क्या माहौल था, क्या क्या कैसा था. तो जैसे आप पेपर 1 से और पेपर 2 के एंड तक आओगे ना, आप 500 साल ऑफ ब्रिटिश हिस्ट्री को कवर कर लोगे, एंड दैट विल गिव यू फैंटास्टिक पर्सपेक्टिव इन टर्म्स ऑफ वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री. समझे? तो थोड़ा सा बाहर से भी पढ़ना है, आउटसाइड इन, और थोड़ा फिर आप टेक्स्ट पढ़ के आपको क्या सोसाइटी का समझ में आया. Those questions are very, very, very important. UPSC is very keen on those concepts, socio political, historical, economical perspectives, era का, times का. ठीक. अब एक लास्ट बात जो मैं हजारों बार जिस पे बात कर चुका हूँ, सुयोग has asked यूनिवर्सिटी स्टाइल एंड दिस स्टाइल. ग्रुप्स में डिस्कस करना. I've given this like hundreds of times. यूनिवर्सिटी आंसर्स में मोस्टली देयर इज नो कंस्ट्रेंट ऑफ टाइम और वर्ड लिमिट. आपको जितने पेज भरने हैं भरो, आपको 3 घंटे में 5 क्वेश्चंस के आंसर लिखने हैं, जितना समय लेना है एक में ले सकते हो. यहाँ पे देयर इज अ कंस्ट्रेंट ऑफ टाइम एंड वर्ड लिमिट. देयर इज अ रीजन फॉर इट, right? Because one, you put under pressure, and two, brevity, conciseness, clarity, coherence, these are the buzzwords. किसी IFS या IAS ऑफिसर को आपने देखा नेताओं की तरह ब्ला 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 करने में? Every sentence matters, right? तो वो मसूरी की ट्रेनिंग से नहीं हो जाता. They test and pick those people who have that communication. Does it make sense? That's what I want to train you. कि आप कितना किसी भी सवाल का कम्युनिकेशन, कितना स्पॉट ऑन, कितना प्रिसाइसली, कितना मिनिमम नंबर, जितने शब्द चाहिए उतने शब्दों के साथ, और प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस होगी, आप ऐसी जगहों पे बोलोगे जहाँ सीएम बैठे होंगे, बड़े लोग बैठे, यू विल बी अंडर प्रेशर ऑलवेज. कैन यू परफॉर्म इट? कैन यू डू इट अंडर प्रेशर? एंड कैन यू स्टिल बी कोहेरेंट शुरू से एंड तक? कोहेरेंट का मतलब है कि पहले वर्ड से लेके आपके आंसर का आखिरी वर्ड एक धागे में पिरोई हुई माला हो, अलग अलग रैंडम डाइग्रेशंस ना हो. इसी की प्रैक्टिस करेंगे हम वीक आफ्टर वीक आफ्टर वीक. मैं इन्हीं बातों को आई विल कीप हैमरिंग अपॉन, and you'll realize that this is it. Okay, and why I can do it better than most people, and uh, this is not a statement of arrogance. It is a very factual statement. One, I understand literature, and two, I am a professional author. So writing, communication is my bread and butter. I've been trained into it. So when I look at your answers, I know right away whether you're lacking in the literary understanding, or whether you're lacking in expression and communication, and how to correct it. So most professors and the wonderful teachers across the country, every university has English department, and they are wonderful teachers, right? But they're not necessarily great editors and teachers of writing. Teaching literature is a completely different task. Teaching writing is a completely different skill set. I happen to be combined both. That is why probably students feel the difference. And I know this is what UPSC want. If they wanted, like before 2014, it was literature heavy. It was mostly like university questions. 50 नंबर का क्वेश्चन है, 40 नंबर का है, 30 नंबर का है. तो अगर वो फॉर्मेट होता तो आई एम प्रोबली नॉट एज गुड. देयर सो मेनी बेटर पीपल देन मी. But now it is about concise, coherent communication. Does it make sense? So we'll become that. If you think you've been watching me talk, if you think I communicate well, so I can teach you. So proof is in the pudding. I'm just going to teach you that, right? And I've seen it time and time again. So many unacademy, even outside. Just give it a few weeks. After about 4 or 5 tests, you'd realize that you don't need me if you stick to 4 or 5 tests. Okay. I haven't had a student who needed all the 14 tests. I never had. या तो छोड़ के भाग जाते हैं, या जो कंसिस्टेंटली करता है वो थर्ड, फोर्थ, फिफ्थ वीक के बाद they don't no longer need me. So then we discuss and I say कि now you don't need to follow this process. You can do whatever you want, because it is about once you get it, it's very simple. It's the truth is simple. So I'll keep hammering upon, keep telling you the same things, and एक हफ्ते बाद, 2 हफ्ते बाद, 3 हफ्ते बाद, 5 हफ्ते बाद आपको यूरेका मोमेंट आएगा, and then that's it. You'll know what to do. Okay. On that note, I think I'll take your leave, and the group is buzzing with lots of activities. Nancy, you are in charge for next 15 days. I'll see you later. Next evaluation when we'll do, hopefully in 7 to 8 days. I'll see you around. Thank you very much. Thanks for watching.